The world's largest container ship slows in a Chinese port. A U.S. flagged tanker diverts its course. No missiles fly, yet a new kind of war has begun. It is quiet, invisible, but devastating in its reach. China has launched its economic counterstrike. Today we uncover how this hidden blow could crash global trade, unspool the dollar's reign, and force every nation to choose sides. Before we begin, if you want to stay ahead of transformations in global power, like this video, share your sharpest thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for weekly deep dives from GeoPower Report. This video is for educational and analytical purposes only. It does not promote violence or histrionic fear. It explores what the world must understand now. Section 1. The Quiet Strike. China's port war begins. It started not with a missile launch, but with a maritime memo. On the 14th of October 2025, China's Ministry of Transport quietly issued a directive. All vessels owned, operated, or flagged by the United States would face adjusted port fees, a bureaucratic term masking one of Beijing's most sophisticated economic strikes in years. The surcharge began at 400 yuan per net ton, rising steadily to 1,120 yuan by 2028. On paper, it looked like a policy tweak. In practice, it was a declaration of economic warfare. Each major American vessel entering a Chinese port now pays millions more in docking costs. For an average U.S. container ship of 70,000 tons, the first-year hit amounts to nearly $4 million per voyage. Multiplied across the dozens of American vessels that still rely on Chinese ports for manufacturing, raw materials, and transshipment, the cost shock is staggering. Beijing insists the move is reciprocal, a response to Washington's own tariffs and port restrictions targeting Chinese-linked vessels earlier in 2025. Yet experts see something deeper. This was not retaliation, it was leverage. China controls the world's busiest ports from Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Ningbo Zhoushan to Gwadar in Pakistan and Piraeus in Greece. Collectively, these account for over 40% of global container throughput. By adjusting access costs, China effectively raised tolls on the arteries of world trade. And this strike landed where America is weakest, its maritime industry. In 2024, the U.S. built fewer than 10 commercial ships, while China produced over 1,000. American carriers depend on foreign-built and chartered ships. Most global shipping lines, even those serving U.S. clients, are registered in Hong Kong, Singapore, or Panama, where Chinese financing quietly dominates. So when Beijing pulls a lever, the entire network feels it. Within 48 hours of the announcement, freight insurance premiums jumped 9%, and shipping firms began rerouting vessels through Vietnam, Malaysia, and India, seeking alternate hubs. But these detours add days of travel time and millions in extra fuel costs. As a result, analysts warned of inflationary aftershocks hitting Western consumers by early 2026. For the first time, trade routes became tools of coercion. China didn't need to blockade the Pacific. It merely priced access to its ports. A shipping executive in Singapore called it the most elegant form of pressure Beijing has ever designed. No explosions, no sanctions, just spreadsheets and invoices that quietly reshape global power. The message was unmistakable. China no longer reacts to America's economic strikes, it initiates them. Section 2. Economic dominoes. America feels the shock. By November 2025, the impact of China's economic counterstrike had begun to ripple far beyond the docks. The numbers told the story. U.S. import costs from Asia surged by 12% in a single month, and logistics firms scrambled to renegotiate supply contracts. What started as a port fee adjustment turned into a global cost shock that Wall Street could no longer ignore. The U.S. economy, already strained by inflation and election year uncertainty, suddenly faced a new bottleneck: maritime access. American tech companies, apparel brands, and auto manufacturers all depend on parts routed through China's ports. Even shipments from third-party nations like Vietnam or Malaysia pass through Chinese-managed terminals at some stage. When Beijing raised costs, everyone paid. Retail giants such as Walmart and Amazon issued internal warnings about delayed inventory and rising prices. Meanwhile, The Baltic Dry Index, a key measure of shipping costs, spiked to its highest point since 2008. U.S. Consumer prices began inching upward again, threatening the fragile recovery that had followed the 2024 slowdown. Politically, the pressure was just as intense. Washington labeled Beijing's move economic blackmail, but the White House had few immediate options. Tariffs could backfire, and direct sanctions risked triggering a total trade freeze. As one former Treasury official put it, "You can't sanction the factory that makes your supply chains." China, on the other hand, framed its move as strategic stabilization, an effort to rebalance trade relationships after years of U.S. restrictions. But analysts saw the real play. Beijing was proving it could weaponize trade logistics as effectively as oil or semiconductors. The U.S. found itself in a paradox: technologically advanced, yet logistically vulnerable. China had struck not at markets, but at movement, and in the 21st century economy, control of movement is control of power. Section 3. Global repercussions, allies on edge. As China's economic counterstrike rippled outward, it wasn't just Washington that felt the sting. The entire global order began to wobble. From Tokyo to Berlin, governments scrambled to assess what Beijing's move really meant. This wasn't a one-off tariff or a retaliatory sanction. It was a strategic realignment of trade power, one that signaled a deeper transformation. China was no longer reacting to global markets, it was setting the terms. In Europe, already struggling with sluggish growth, shipping delays became a nightmare. Germany's auto giants, dependent on Chinese components and rare minerals, faced production slowdowns. The European Union called an emergency summit, warning of systemic risk to supply resilience. France's foreign minister bluntly stated that the global economy cannot function with one nation as its choke point. In Asia, the tension was even sharper. The Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia, nations that had tried to balance between U.S. defense ties and Chinese trade, now faced an impossible choice. Beijing hinted that cooperative nations would receive preferential shipping treatment, effectively forcing Southeast Asian economies to choose sides. Within weeks, Manila's new trade envoy was in Beijing, seeking clarification on tariffs, a diplomatic phrase masking quiet desperation. Meanwhile, the Middle East watched closely. China, already the top buyer of Gulf oil, began pricing some shipments in yuan. For Saudi Arabia and Iran, this wasn't just economic convenience, it was geopolitical leverage. Oil for yuan deals symbolized a new axis of power, undermining decades of dollar dominance. Washington's allies grew uneasy. NATO's economic wing held emergency consultations, while Japan and South Korea mulled expanding regional shipping cooperation to reduce dependency on Chinese-controlled routes. Yet, as one Asian analyst put it, avoiding China is like avoiding gravity. It's everywhere. Beijing's strategy had achieved something remarkable. It divided America's alliances not through war, but through economic inevitability. Every country faced a similar dilemma: defy China and pay more, or comply and stay afloat. The result? A fractured economic order, where loyalty was measured not in treaties or ideology, but in who could keep the ships moving. And in that equation, China suddenly held the world's most valuable card. Section 4. The American Dilemma: Retaliation or Recalibration. In Washington, the mood was tense. The White House Situation Room buzzed with urgency as economic advisors, Pentagon strategists, and trade negotiators clashed over one central question: how should America respond? Some hawks pushed for escalation, higher tariffs, technology sanctions, and even naval exercises in the South China Sea to project strength. "We can't let Beijing dictate global trade routes," one senior official warned. But others, particularly within the Treasury and the private sector, cautioned against a direct confrontation. The U.S. economy was too intertwined with China's, from pharmaceuticals to electronics, for an all-out decoupling to happen without pain. Donald Trump, now back in the political spotlight, publicly denounced China's moves as an economic ambush and promised to bring manufacturing home, whatever it takes. His rhetoric ignited debates across Congress. Could America realistically rebuild its industrial base quickly enough to counter Beijing's leverage? Behind the scenes, Wall Street began to panic. Shipping costs surged, Inflation pressures rose, and investors started moving assets into safer havens. Multinational corporations from Apple to Boeing were forced to rethink their global supply chains overnight. The Pentagon issued warnings that China's new dominance in rare earth exports could cripple U.S. defense production, particularly for advanced weapons systems and jet engines. Meanwhile, the State Department urged a diplomatic pause, a call for strategic patience, hoping to avoid triggering a broader economic war. But China's message was already clear. It no longer played by the West's rules. It set its own. Caught between confrontation and compromise, America faced a defining choice: retaliate and risk escalation, or adapt and rebuild. Either path would reshape not just its economy, but its standing as the world's preeminent power. The global balance was tilting, and this time, it wasn't shifting with bombs or bullets, but with contracts, cargo ships, and currencies. If you found this analysis illuminating, like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to GeoPower Report for more in-depth coverage of emerging global power. Turn on notifications because in a world where trade is the battlefield, what happens next matters.